I let them think I forgave them. Then I found out what my family did while I was gone. I almost ignored the call. That's the part that keeps replaying in my head. How close I was to letting it ring out, tossing my phone back onto the passenger seat, and driving the rest of the way home like nothing was wrong. If I had, my life would look very different right now. The screen lit up with a number I didn't recognize. No name, no area code I knew, just digits blinking against the dark dashboard as rain smeared the windshield. I was exhausted. 13 hours on the road, a cheap motel, too much coffee, not enough sleep. I had just crossed back into the city I grew up in, the city I swore I'd never return to. I told myself it was probably spam. Or worse, someone from my family. I hesitated. Then it rang again. Something about that second ring made my stomach tighten, like my body knew before my brain did. I answered. Hello. There was silence, breathing shallow, controlled. Then a woman's voice said quietly, You need to come home. They're lying to you. I pulled over so fast the tires screeched. Who is this? I asked. Another pause. You don't know me, she said, but I know what they did while you were gone. My heart started hammering. What are you talking about? I said. Who is they? She exhaled slowly, like she was steadying herself. Your family. The word hit harder than I expected. I hadn't spoken to most of them in almost 3 years. Not after everything. Not after the way I left. I think you have the wrong number, I said, even though I knew she didn't. No, she replied. I don't. I've been trying to reach you for weeks. I laughed once, sharp, humorless. Look, if this is about my parents or my sister, I don't care. Whatever they told you, believe it. I'm done. Silence again. Then she said the one thing that made my hands start shaking. They told everyone you abandoned the house, that you signed everything over. My chest tightened. I hadn't abandoned anything. I didn't sign anything, I said. I know, she replied. That's why I'm calling. Rain tapped against the roof of the car as my mind raced backward. 3 years earlier. The night everything broke. When my father died, it happened fast. Heart attack, grocery store parking lot, dropped between his truck and the shopping cart like someone had pulled a switch. By the time the hospital called, it was already over. I remember standing in that hallway, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, my mother crying into my sister's shoulder, everyone speaking in hushed tones like volume could undo death. At the time, I believed we were grieving together. I believed family meant something. I moved back home to help temporarily. That was the word they used, temporary. I quit my job in another city, put my life on pause, told myself it was the right thing to do. The house felt smaller without my father, quieter, but familiar. At first, everything seemed normal. Then the paperwork started. My mother handled most of it. She always had. Bills, documents, forms slid across the dining table for signatures. Just routine, she'd say. I trusted her. Why wouldn't I? She was my mother. But grief does strange things to memory. It blurs edges, softens warning signs, makes you tired enough to stop asking questions. I stayed 6 months. 6 months turned into arguments, then silence. Then one night, a fight so bad I packed a bag and left before sunrise. I didn't look back. And I didn't hear from them again, at least not directly. Which is why that woman's call made no sense. I don't want anything to do with them, I said into the phone. If this is about money or property or whatever drama they're involved in, I'm not part of it. I know you think that, she said gently, but you already are. I closed my eyes. What did they do? I asked. She hesitated. I don't think this should be said over the phone, she said, but you deserve to know. They used your absence. My throat felt dry. For what? Another pause. To erase you. The word echoed in my head. Erase. I need proof, I said. I'm not coming back based on a stranger's voice. I figured you'd say that, she replied. That's why I sent you something. My phone buzzed. A text message. An attachment. I opened it and felt my breath leave my body. It was a scanned document. My name was on it. My signature was on it. And I knew, deep in my bones, I had never signed it. The rain felt louder now. What is this? I whispered. That, she said, is the reason they want you gone. I stared at the document. Legal language, dates, my name listed where it should never have been. They told everyone you agreed, she continued. They said you wanted nothing, that you walked away. My pulse roared in my ears. This isn't real, I said. This can't be. It's very real, she replied, and it's already been filed. I felt something cold spread through my chest, not anger yet, not grief. Something sharper. Calculation. Who are you? I asked again. My name doesn't matter, she said. What matters is that I work where this was processed. I sat up straight. And you're calling me because? Because I recognize the signature, she said quietly. It doesn't match the rest. Silence swallowed the line. I shouldn't even be talking to you, she added, but I watched them smile while it went through. My fingers curled around the steering wheel. When? I asked. 2 years ago, she said, right after you left. 2 years. While I was rebuilding my life. While I was working overtime, telling myself the past was dead. They had been rewriting me. I need to see everything, I said. You will, she replied, if you come home. I looked through the windshield at the dark road ahead. I had sworn never to return. But now I understood something I hadn't before. They hadn't just hurt me. They had planned it. I'm already here, I said. Her breath caught. Then don't let them know yet, she said quickly. Not until you understand how deep this goes. I stared at the city lights flickering in the distance. How deep? I asked. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Deep enough that, if you confront them too soon, you'll lose everything for good. The line went dead. I sat there in the car, rain still falling, document glowing on my screen. And for the first time since I left, I realized something terrifying. They never expected me to come back. I didn't go straight to the house. That instinct to drive back to the place I grew up, park in the driveway, and demand answers was loud, emotional, familiar. And wrong. If there was one thing the woman on the phone made clear, it was this. They were comfortable. Comfortable people don't panic. Comfortable people make mistakes slowly. I checked into a cheap hotel on the edge of town instead, the kind that smells faintly of bleach and old carpet. I dropped my bag, sat on the edge of the bed, and stared at the document again. My name. My forged signature. A transfer of interest. Not everything, that was the clever part. Just enough. The house. The land behind it. And a clause that said I had voluntarily relinquished future claims. I laughed once, out loud, then stopped when it echoed too much. They hadn't taken it all. They'd taken it quietly. I thought back to the night I left. The fight. My mother standing in the doorway, arms crossed, saying, "If you walk out, don't expect things to be the same." At the time, I thought she meant emotionally. Now I wondered how literal she'd been. The next morning, I did something I hadn't planned on doing. I visited the courthouse. Not to confront anyone, not to file anything. Just to look. The building hadn't changed. Same chipped steps. Same security guard who barely glanced up. I signed in as a records inquiry and waited. The clerk was polite in that detached way people get when they've seen too much paperwork to care about the stories behind it. "What are you looking for?" she asked. "Property records," I said. "Family estate." She typed for a moment, then paused. Huh. My stomach dropped. What? She tilted the screen slightly toward herself, eyes narrowing. "You're listed as having transferred your interest. I didn't, I said. She didn't argue, didn't raise an eyebrow. She just said, "It happens." That scared me more than disbelief would have. She printed copies and slid them across the counter. Dates, names, signatures. Witnessed. Notarized. Perfect. Too perfect. Who notarized this? I asked. She pointed to a name at the bottom. A local notary. One I recognized. A family friend. Someone who used to come to Sunday dinners. My jaw tightened. "Can I get copies of everything?" I asked. She nodded. "There's a fee." "I'll pay," I said immediately. As the printer hummed, I felt something settle inside me. This wasn't chaos. This was coordination. On the way out, my phone buzzed. A text. "Mom, I heard you're back in town." I stared at the screen. I hadn't told anyone. Not a soul. I didn't reply. Seconds later, another message. "We should talk, like adults." Adults. I almost laughed. Instead, I turned the phone off. That afternoon, I drove past the house. Slowly. Not close enough to be obvious, just enough to see. The front yard looked cared for. New paint on the fence, fresh flowers near the porch, wind chimes I didn't recognize. Someone had been playing house. I parked a block away and watched. My sister's car was there. So was another one I didn't know. I sat there longer than I meant to. At one point, the front door opened. My mother stepped out, smiling, laughing at something said behind her. She looked lighter, unburdened. That hurt more than anger would have. Then I noticed something small. The mailbox. My name wasn't on it anymore. Just theirs. Like I'd never existed. That night, I went back to the hotel and spread the documents across the bed. There were gaps. Tiny ones. Dates that overlapped strangely. A witness signature that didn't match the handwriting on other files. A notarization time stamped at 8:12 p.m. I checked the notary's listed hours. Closed at 6. Interesting. I took photos, notes, screenshots. I didn't feel like myself anymore. I felt methodical. Around midnight, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. "You saw it," the woman said, not a question. "Yes." "Good," she replied. "Then you understand why you can't confront them yet." "They forged documents," I said. "That's a crime." "Yes," she said, "but it's also a trap." I sat back against the headboard. "Explain." "They've had 2 years to make this official," she said. "To establish possession, to make it look like you disappeared willingly." "I didn't disappear." "You left," she corrected, "and they made sure it stayed that way." I closed my eyes. "What do you want from me?" I asked. "I want you to do nothing," she said, "for now." I laughed bitterly. "That's what they want." "No," she said, "they want you to explode." Silence stretched. "If you confront them," she continued, "they'll cry, they'll deny, they'll make you look unstable, grief-stricken, reckless." I imagined it. My mother's tears, my sister's silence, the way they'd tilt their heads and say, "Why now?" "And if I wait?" I asked. "Then you learn," she said, "and people who think they've won always reveal too much." I exhaled slowly. "How did you even notice this?" I asked. Another pause. "Because they came back again," she said. My heart skipped. "For what?" "To file something new." The words landed heavy. "What?" "A final adjustment," she said. "One that removes your name completely." I sat up. "When?" She checked something, papers rustling. "Tomorrow." I didn't sleep. I lay there in the dark, listening to cars pass, replaying every memory I'd ever dismissed. The times my sister stopped answering my calls. The way my mother avoided certain questions. the speed with which they moved on. This wasn't revenge. It was erasure. And they weren't finished. The next morning, I sat in the courthouse again. Different floor. Different office. This time, I wasn't alone. The woman met me there. She looked ordinary. That was the strangest part. Mid-30s, tired eyes, no dramatic flair. "You ready?" she asked quietly. "For what?" I replied. "To hear how deep it actually goes." She opened a folder. Inside were documents I had never seen. My name was on them too. But this time, so was hers. I stared at the folder like it might bite me. My name was there, printed cleanly in black ink. Familiar, expected. Hers was underneath it. Not as a witness. Not as a clerk. As a beneficiary. I looked up at her slowly. "You said you just worked here," I said. She didn't flinch, didn't rush to explain. "I do," she replied, "but that's not why my name is on that page." My pulse thudded in my ears. "Then why is it?" She pulled out the chair beside me and sat down, folding her hands like she'd practiced this moment in her head more than once. "Because your family didn't just change paperwork," she said. "They created a contingency." I frowned. "For what?" "For you coming back." The air felt heavier. She slid the document closer. "This," she said, tapping the page, "is a trust amendment, filed quietly, not advertised, not contested." I scanned it. Legal language blurred, until one phrase snapped into focus. "In the event of dispute or reappearance." Reappearance. Like I was a ghost. "What does this mean?" I asked. "It means," she said carefully, "that if you contested the transfer, ownership wouldn't revert to you." I swallowed. It would pass to a neutral third party. I looked at her again. "You." She nodded. "They didn't expect me to question anything," she said. "They expected me to be invisible." My chest tightened. "So you'd get the house?" I asked. She shook her head. "No, I'd get control." That was worse. "Why?" I asked. "Why you?" She leaned back slightly, eyes distant. "Because I'm not related. Because I wouldn't raise suspicion. Because I could be framed as impartial." I let out a slow breath. "They planned this." "Yes." "How long?" She hesitated. "Before your father died." The words landed like a dropped plate. "That's not possible," I said. They updated drafts," she interrupted gently. "Nothing final until after, but the intention was there." I felt something crack inside my chest. My father hadn't just died. He'd been replaced. I flipped through the rest of the folder. There were emails, notes, requests. My sister's name appeared more than once. My mother's handwriting, undeniable, looping and precise, annotated margins. And then there was something else. A note. Short, handwritten, scanned and attached. "If he comes back angry, this protects us." I stared at it until the words stopped feeling real. "That's her handwriting," I whispered. "I know," the woman said. I laughed softly, then stopped when it sounded wrong. "So this was never about grief," I said, "or inheritance." "No," she replied. "It was about control." I closed the folder. "Why tell me?" I asked again. "Why risk your job?" She looked down at her hands. "Because my name being on that trust means I'd be responsible for enforcing it," she said. "I'd be the one standing in front of you, legally blocking you." And I couldn't live with that," she said. "Not when you didn't even know." Silence stretched between us. "Did they offer you something?" I asked. "Yes." I raised an eyebrow. "A percentage," she said. "Quiet money, no involvement." "And you said no." "I didn't say yes," she corrected. I stalled. "Smart." "They're filing the final adjustment today," she added. "Once it's done, the trust becomes airtight." I felt cold. "What happens then?" Then you become a threat, she said, and they'll treat you like one. That afternoon, I did something reckless. I went to see my sister. She lived only 10 minutes from the courthouse, a small apartment I'd helped her move into years ago. I didn't call ahead. I knocked. When she opened the door and saw me, her face drained of color. "You're not supposed to be here," she said. "Not why are you here? Not how have you been? Just that." "I need to talk to you," I said. She glanced behind her, then stepped outside, pulling the door shut. "You can't," she said quietly. "You really can't." "Why?" I asked. Her eyes flicked toward the stairs, then back to me. "Because they'll find out." That word again. They. "Since when do you answer to them?" I asked. Her jaw tightened. "Since you left." I felt something twist in my chest. "I didn't abandon you," I said. She laughed bitterly. "You disappeared," she said, "and everything changed." "That's not true," I said. "They forged my signature." She froze. "What?" "I've seen the documents," I continued. "I know about the trust." Her face crumpled. "Who told you?" she whispered. That was all the confirmation I needed. "So you knew," I said. She didn't deny it. Tears filled her eyes. "They said it was temporary," she said. "They said it was for protection." "Protection from who?" I asked. She hesitated. "You." I felt numb. "They told us you were unstable," she continued. "That you might come back angry, that you'd try to take everything." I laughed softly. "And you believed them." She looked away. "I didn't know what else to believe," she said. "You didn't call." "I did," I said. "You stopped answering." Her shoulders slumped. "They told me not to," she admitted. My heart sank. "For how long?" I asked. She whispered, 2 years. A door opened above us. Footsteps. My sister stiffened. "You need to go," she said urgently. "Now." "Are they here?" I asked. She nodded. "Mom is," she said, "and she doesn't know you know." I stepped back slowly. As I reached my car, I looked up. A curtain moved. Someone was watching. That night, my phone rang again. Unknown number. I answered without hesitation. "They know," the woman said. My heart skipped. "How?" "They moved the filing up," she said, "an hour ago." My chest tightened. "What does that mean?" "It means," she said quietly, "they're rushing because something spooked them." I thought of my sister's face, the curtain moving. "They saw me," I said. "Yes," she replied, "and now they're afraid." I gripped the phone harder. "Good," I said. There was a pause. "Be careful," she said. "People don't get scared unless they have something to lose." I stared out at the dark city. For the first time since I came back, I smiled. I didn't go back to the hotel. I couldn't sit still knowing they were rushing paperwork through, knowing decisions were being made about my life in rooms I wasn't allowed into. Instead, I parked 2 streets away from the law office my mother's attorney worked out of. I knew the place, beige building, glass doors, too clean, too calm. I had been there once, years ago, when my father updated his will after a health scare. Back then, it felt responsible. Now, it felt strategic. I sat in the car and waited. 15 minutes passed. Then 30. Finally, my mother's car pulled in. My sister's car followed. My stomach twisted. They weren't hiding anymore. They were consolidating. I pulled my hood up, grabbed my phone, and walked in. The receptionist looked up. "Can I help you?" she asked. "I'm here for the Miller Trust meeting," I said calmly. She glanced at the screen. "I'm sorry, I don't see." "Last name Carter," I added. "Beneficiary." She frowned, typed again. Her expression changed. "Oh," she said slowly. "Yes, you're early." I smiled. "I know." She pointed down the hall. Conference room B. My pulse pounded, but my steps were steady. I could hear voices before I reached the door. My mother's voice, controlled, pleasant. The lawyer's measured. My sister's quiet. I paused. Then I opened the door. The room went silent. My mother's face drained of color so fast it almost startled me. My sister gasped. The lawyer stood halfway out of his chair. "What is this?" my mother said sharply. I closed the door behind me. "This," I said, "is me coming back." The lawyer cleared his throat. "Sir, this is a private." "I'm listed on the documents you're filing," I said, turning to him, "which makes me very much entitled to be here." He hesitated, then slowly sat back down. My mother found her voice. "How dare you walk in here like this?" she said. "After everything." "After everything you did?" I asked calmly. She scoffed. "You left," she said. "You abandoned us." "I left to fight," I replied. "You erased me." Her eyes flashed. "That's dramatic," she said. I pulled the folder from my bag and slid it across the table. Her hand stilled. The lawyer leaned forward, scanning the pages. "This document," I said, "contains my forged signature." The lawyer stiffened. "That's a serious accusation," he said. "It's also accurate," I replied, "and the notary timestamp proves it." Silence. My sister stared at the table. My mother didn't look surprised. She looked irritated. "You're blowing this out of proportion," she said. "Everything was done to protect the family." "From me?" I asked. She hesitated just a fraction too long. "You were unstable," she said finally. "You were angry, we didn't know what you'd do." I laughed softly. "So you planned," I said, "for 2 years." Her jaw tightened. "You would have fought us," she snapped. "You would have torn everything apart." "And that justified forgery?" I asked. She leaned back in her chair. "You left," she repeated. "You gave up your right to have a say." "No," I said, "you took it." The lawyer cleared his throat again. "Mrs. Carter," he said carefully, "if these allegations are true." "They're not," she snapped. "This is a misunderstanding." I turned to him. "Then cancel today's filing," I said. "Pause everything." My mother slammed her hand on the table. "No." The room froze. She looked at me then, not like a mother. Like an opponent. "We are finishing this," she said coldly. "Today." My sister finally spoke. "Mom, maybe we should." "Stay out of this," my mother cut in. That was the moment I saw it clearly. This wasn't grief. This wasn't fear. This was entitlement. I took a breath. "Before you file anything," I said, "you should know something." They all looked at me. I'm not the only one watching this. My mother frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means," I said, "that the trust amendment listing a neutral third-party controller is compromised." The lawyer stiffened. "What?" he asked. I turned to him. "The beneficiary you listed," I said, "didn't consent." His face drained of color. "That's not possible," he said. "She signed." "No," I replied, "she didn't." Silence fell hard. My mother slowly turned to him. "What is he talking about?" she asked. He didn't answer immediately. I watched panic creep into his expression. "You told me everything was settled," my mother said sharply. He swallowed. "There may have been assumptions," he said. I smiled slightly. "That assumption," I said, "is sitting in your system as a liability." My mother stood abruptly. "You're bluffing," she said. "You don't have anything." I pulled out my phone. "I have recordings," I said. "Emails, witness testimony." I didn't specify whose. Didn't need to. Her confidence wavered. "Sit down," the lawyer said quietly to her. She didn't. "You did this on purpose," she said to me, voice trembling with anger. "You came back just to destroy us." I shook my head. No, I said. I came back because you already tried to destroy me. The meeting ended without signatures, without smiles, without closure. As I walked out, my sister followed me into the hallway. I didn't know it went this far, she whispered. I stopped. You knew enough, I said. She flinched. I was scared, she said. They said you'd take everything. I looked at her. I never wanted everything, I said. I wanted honesty. She nodded, tears spilling. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't answer. That night, I got a message from the woman. They're panicking, it read. Which means they're about to make a mistake. I stared at the city lights outside my window. For the first time, I felt something close to calm. Because I realized something. They weren't trying to protect themselves from me. They were trying to protect something else. Something they hadn't told me about yet. I didn't plan to go back to the house that night. But there are certain truths you can't learn from paperwork. They live in walls, in drawers no one opens anymore, in rooms that still remember arguments. I waited until after midnight. The neighborhood was quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you feel like you're doing something wrong even when you're not. I parked 2 blocks away and walked. The house looked exactly the same. That was the unsettling part. Same porch light, same curtains, same front door that still creaked slightly when you opened it. I used my old key. It still worked. That hurt more than if it hadn't. Inside, the air smelled like lemon cleaner and something floral, my mother's attempt at freshness. The furniture had been rearranged, family photos replaced, new frames. But the bones of the place hadn't changed. I stood there for a long moment, listening. Nothing. No movement, no voices. They were asleep. Or not home. Either way, I had a window. I went straight to my father's old study. They hadn't changed it much. New desk chair, fewer papers, but the shelves were the same. He'd been methodical, everything labeled, everything tucked where he could find it again. That's why I noticed it. A slight misalignment in the bottom drawer. I pulled it open. Inside were folders, old insurance documents, manuals, receipts. And beneath them, taped to the bottom, was a thin envelope. Yellowed, creased. Addressed to me. My breath caught. I peeled it free carefully, like it might fall apart. Inside was a letter. My father's handwriting. I sat down hard in the chair. If you're reading this, it means I didn't get the chance to explain things properly. I swallowed. I don't know how long I have, and I don't know what your mother will choose to do after I'm gone. My heart began to pound. But I need you to understand something clearly. This house was never meant to belong to her alone. I clenched my jaw. There are things she doesn't know I know, things she believes were buried. I flipped the page with trembling fingers. I changed the structure of the estate quietly, not to punish anyone, but to make sure the truth survives me. My breath felt shallow. If she's angry at you, if she tries to push you away, it's because you represent something she can't control. I laughed softly, bitterly. Trust your instincts, and don't let them convince you that leaving means surrender. At the bottom was a date. 2 weeks before he died. I sat there, staring at the letter, feeling like the floor had dropped out from under me. He knew. Some of it at least. I searched the drawer again. Behind the back panel was another envelope. This one thicker. Inside were copies. Bank statements. Transfers. A second account. Not in my mother's name. Not in my sister. In a trust. Listed beneficiaries. Me. And someone else. I froze. The name wasn't familiar. But it wasn't random either. It was connected. I snapped photos, returned everything as carefully as I found it, and left the house exactly the way it was. When I got back to the car, my hands were shaking. The next morning, I called the woman. I found something, I said without preamble. So did I, she replied. We met at a cafe on the edge of town. Neutral ground. I slid my phone across the table, showing her the letter. She read it slowly, then looked up at me. He suspected, she said. Of what? I asked. She hesitated. Of money being moved, she said, quietly over years. My stomach sank. That second trust, she continued. It's why your mother couldn't just let you walk away. I leaned forward. Why? Because it invalidates everything she tried to do, she said. If it surfaces. I stared at her. So that's why she panicked when I came back. Yes, she said, and why she tried to erase you completely. I thought of the trust amendment. The contingency. I said quietly, that's why you're on it. She nodded. They needed someone to block you, she said. Someone neutral enough to survive scrutiny. And you didn't even know why, I said. Not until recently, she replied. I exhaled slowly. What's in the second trust? I asked. She leaned back. Enough to make people very uncomfortable, she said. That afternoon, my sister called. Her voice was shaky. Mom's furious, she said. She knows something is wrong. Good, I replied. She's saying you're trying to steal from us. I laughed softly. Tell her, I said. I'm just trying to find what Dad left behind. Silence. How do you know about that? My sister whispered. I smiled. I found his letter, I said. Her breath hitched. She never knew, she said. He hid it from her. On purpose, I replied. Another pause. She's scared, my sister said quietly. For the first time, I said. That night, I sat alone in the hotel room, letter spread out in front of me. I realized something then. My father hadn't just left instructions. He'd left leverage. And my family had spent 2 years trying to bury it. The second trust didn't show up in any of the places you'd expect. No online portals. No casual statements. No neat quarterly summaries. My father had been careful, almost paranoid. Which meant finding it wasn't about searching harder. It was about knowing where not to look. The woman helped me trace it. Not officially, not on paper. Hypothetically, she said, leaning across the cafe table, voice low. If someone wanted to move money quietly over years, they wouldn't use domestic banks. I nodded. Too visible. And if they wanted to make sure one person couldn't touch it alone, she continued, they'd split authority. My chest tightened. That's why there's another name, I said. Yes. The unfamiliar beneficiary. We didn't say it out loud yet. It took 3 days. 3 days of late nights, burner emails, old account numbers pulled from archived tax forms. Then it surfaced. Not as a balance. As a pattern. Regular transfers, small at first, then larger, then strategic. Always timed around events. College tuition, renovations, new cars. My mother's lifestyle hadn't magically stabilized after my father's death. It had been subsidized long before it. She was siphoning, I said flatly. The woman didn't correct me. She thought he didn't notice, she said, but he did. The transfers stopped 6 months before he died. Replaced by something else. Safeguards. That's when I understood the letter. There are things she doesn't know I know. My father hadn't confronted her. He'd prepared. The second name on the trust belonged to someone I never expected. My uncle. My mother's brother. The one who lived abroad. The one we never talked about. The one she insisted was irresponsible. The one she said couldn't be trusted with money. My hands clenched into fists. He helped Dad, I said slowly. Yes, the woman replied, and he kept his distance on purpose. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. He knew what would happen, I said. He knew she'd try to take control. And he knew you'd be the variable she couldn't predict, she added. My pulse thudded. That's why they'd tried to erase me. I called my uncle that night. I hadn't spoken to him in over a decade. The line rang twice. Then, I was wondering when you'd find it, he said calmly. I closed my eyes. You knew, I said. Yes. They forged my signature. I know. They tried to cut me out. I expected that. My jaw tightened. Why didn't you stop them? I demanded. Because, he said gently, they needed to believe they were succeeding. Silence. You ready to hear the rest? He asked. I swallowed. Yes. He told me everything. About the arguments I never saw. About my mother's resentment toward the house. About how she saw inheritance as entitlement. About how she'd been moving money years before my father's heart gave out. She thought he was weak, my uncle said. Too distracted, too sentimental. I thought of my father's quiet habits. His routines. His silence. He wasn't weak, I said. No, my uncle replied. He was patient. I exhaled slowly. And now, I asked. Now, he said, you choose. Choose what? Whether you want justice, he said, or peace. I laughed bitterly. Those aren't the same thing. No, he agreed, and you can't have both. The breaking point came sooner than expected. My mother made a mistake. She called the bank. From her own phone. She demanded access to an account she claimed existed. One she wasn't supposed to know about. That call triggered an internal flag. Which triggered a review. Which triggered questions. And questions don't stay quiet. The woman called me that afternoon. It's unraveling, she said. How bad? I asked. She panicked, she replied, which means she left a trail. I closed my eyes. What happens now? She paused. That depends, she said, on whether you step forward or stay invisible. That night, my sister showed up at my hotel room. Unannounced. Eyes red. Hands shaking. She's blaming you, she said as soon as I opened the door. I stepped aside and let her in. She says you planned this, she continued, that you manipulated Dad. I sat down. And do you believe her? I asked. She hesitated, then shook her head. No, she whispered. I don't think I ever did. She looked up at me. I just didn't want to be on the wrong side. That hurt more than anger. The wrong side of what? I asked. Of her, she said. I nodded slowly. She's scared, my sister added. I've never seen her like this. I thought of the woman's words. People don't get scared unless they have something to lose. The next morning, my mother requested a meeting. Neutral location. Her idea. I agreed. Because I already knew something she didn't. The review had escalated. And soon, silence wouldn't be an option anymore. By the time the police finally forced their way into the house, the rain had slowed to a thin, steady drizzle, like the world itself was holding its breath. The front door hung open. One hinge broken. The lock torn clean out. Inside, the house smelled wrong. Not blood. Not decay. Fear. Detective Mallory noticed it immediately. He'd worked murders for 17 years, and he knew when a place had absorbed something terrible. Clear, one officer muttered from the hallway. Mallory stepped into the living room. The furniture was untouched, no struggle, no overturned chairs, no broken glass. But on the wall, directly above the fireplace, someone had written a single sentence in black marker. You never asked the right questiones. Mallory felt a chill crawl up his spine. They found the basement door unlocked. That alone was wrong. Earlier reports said it had always been locked, padlocked, even. Neighbors remembered the sound of metal clanking whenever anyone went down there. Now, nothing. The steps creaked as Mallory descended, flashlight cutting through the dark. The basement was empty. No body. No sign of a struggle. Just a wooden chair in the center of the room, facing the far wall. And on that wall, photos. Dozens of them. Pinned in neat rows. Family photos. But not the kind you frame. Photos of arguments. Of whispered conversations. Of money being exchanged in parking lots. Of hospital hallways at 2:13 a.m. Mallory stepped closer. His heart started pounding. These weren't random. They told a story. There was the mother, smiling at church, holding hands during Sunday service. Pinned next to it, a photo of her signing documents at a private clinic. Next row, the father laughing at a barbecue. Next to it, a security photo of him entering the basement late at night, carrying a locked case. Then came the sister. The golden child. Honor roll, scholarships, perfect smile. Pinned beside her photo was a hospital wristband. Not hers. The protagonist's. Mallory swallowed hard. This isn't a crime scene, he muttered. This is a confession. On the chair sat a single manila folder. Mallory opened it carefully. Inside were medical records. Insurance claims. A falsified death certificate. And at the bottom, handwritten in steady, deliberate ink. They said it was an accident. They said I was unstable. They said no, one would believe me. Mallory felt his chest tighten. There was a final page. Just one sentence. So I made sure the truth survived, even if they didn't. Hours later, news stations broke the story. Entire family missing. House under investigation. Suspected foul play. But there were no suspects. No fingerprints except family members. No DNA that didn't belong. It was like the people inside that house had simply stepped out of reality. Mallory sat at his desk long after everyone else had gone home. He kept staring at the photos, at the patterns, at what the family had done, what they had hidden, what they had forced someone to become. He finally whispered it out loud. They weren't victims. 3 days later, Mallory received an email. No sender name. No IP trace. Just a single attachment. A video. He hesitated, then clicked play. The screen flickered. The protagonist appeared, sitting calmly in a dim room. Alive. Uninjured. Eyes steady. I didn't kill them, the voice said softly. I gave them the same silence they gave me. The screen cut to black. Text appeared. If you're watching this, you already know why. The end, or not. The case was officially listed as unsolved. Online, people argued endlessly. Some called it justice. Others called it evil. Most couldn't decide. But one thing was undeniable. The family's secrets were out. And somewhere, walking freely among strangers, was someone who had been betrayed, erased, and blamed. And who had finally decided to stop being quiet. The house was eventually sold. Renovated. Painted. But locals swear that sometimes, late at night, the lights in the basement turn on by themselves. And on the wall, even after being repainted, a faint message always returns. You never asked the right questions.